ready-made for control. In a time when control increasingly operates without visible markers, when surveillance is no longer tied to cameras, borders, or security personnel, but inscribed into data flows, bodies, and movements as algorithmic governance, the ankle bracelet monitor appears almost archaic. Yet it is precisely this crude visibility of control that becomes analytically productive. In this context, the ankle bracelet monitor is reclaimed as an artistic medium, not to comment on criminal justice, but to pose a more fundamental question. How free is art under contemporary regimes of control? Power is not something that one possesses, it is something that one exercises. Michel Foucault, Discipline and Punish, 1975. In modern democracies, power rarely manifests through direct violence. Instead, it operates through normalization, discipline, and regulation. Art institutions, biennials, museums, funding bodies, are embedded within these mechanisms. They are governed by guidelines, political expectations, moral frameworks, and market logic. Within this framework, the ankle bracelet monitor does not mark criminality. It marks dependence on a system. When artists wear such a device in exhibition spaces or art events, without announcement or explanation, an unease emerges. The audience is confronted with uncertainty. Are these bodies dangerous? Or has art itself become subject to regulation? This disquiet exposes the implicit power structures of the art world. Who is allowed to produce art? Who receives visibility? Which bodies are considered acceptable? Which forms of critique remain permissible? The ankle monitor does not communicate verbally, yet it articulates these questions with precision. Because the performers move seemingly freely, as visitors among visitors, the device becomes a structural metaphor for contemporary art itself. Freedom exists, but only within predefined limits. Critique is tolerated as long as it remains legible and non-disruptive. The ankle bracelet renders these otherwise invisible boundaries tangible. Like Duchamp's U.R.A, the ankle monitor operates through recontextualization. But unlike the historical U.R.A, its function is not suspended. A quiet, technocratic aesthetic emerges, non-spectacular, restrained, operational. Its power lies not in provocation, but in silence. Rather than employing slogans or imagery, this gesture relies on a single technological object worn on the body. In doing so, it exposes art's vulnerability and confronts its own lack of autonomy. Algorithms, the censors no one chose. In the digital present, censorship rarely takes the form of prohibition. Instead, it is enacted by algorithms, opaque computational systems that determine visibility without accountability. Platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube delegate curatorial authority to automated processes optimized for engagement, monetization, and attention. What cannot be monetized disappears. What does not perform becomes invisible. These decisions follow criteria that remain undisclosed and constantly shifting. There is no identifiable censor, no authority to confront. The algorithm operates as an unaccountable curator. This form of censorship is particularly effective because it is imperceptible. There are no bans, no scandals, only disappearance, a post that sinks, a video that fails to circulate, an artistic gesture that vanishes without trace. Subversion becomes ineffective when it fails to align with the system's logic. Artistic freedom, under these conditions, is no longer defined by expression alone, but by visibility itself. The central question becomes, what does freedom mean when being seen is already a form of compliance? From fountain to ankle bracelet monitor. In 1917, Marcel Duchamp placed a mass-produced urinal in a gallery and declared it art. This gesture displaced the definition of the artwork from object to context, from production to institutional framing. More than a century later, the U.R.A reappears in altered form. No longer driven by irony or provocation, it now functions as an analytical tool addressing control, surveillance, and freedom. At its center stands the ankle bracelet monitor, a fully operational technology of real-time supervision. Transferred into an artistic context, the device is not neutralized. Instead, it reveals the infrastructural reality of surveillance already embedded in everyday life. Its aesthetic, smooth, functional, without ornament, reflects a system that reduces the body to a data source and the individual to a monitored zone. In contrast to Duchamp's gesture, RMFC does not liberate the object from function. It exposes function as domination. The U.R.A is no longer removed from everyday life. It remains embedded within it, making systemic conditions visible rather than symbolic. RMFC thus reverses the classical logic of the U.R.A. It is not art that questions the everyday, but the everyday, through its control technologies, that intrudes into art. the ankle monitor becomes part of a new iconography of the present. One that requires no images, only operational objects approached with analytical distance. RMFC and the displacement of the reanimate within the institutional exhibition space. Duchamp's reanimate shifted the question of art toward institutional context. RMFC extends this shift by insisting on functionality rather than suspending it. At the Berlin Biennale, the ankle bracelet monitor is neither exhibited nor explained. It is worn. The exhibition space becomes an interface between two systems, art and control. Rather than aestheticizing surveillance, RMFC reveals the institutional conditions under which art circulates. The significance of RMFC emerges not from the object itself, but from its confrontation with the Biennale as an institution. A space that claims openness and critical freedom is shown to be structurally aligned with regulation, selection, and normalization. The audience encounters no artwork in the conventional sense, but bodies whose freedom is technically restricted. The boundary between participation and compliance becomes unstable. The exhibition space is no longer assumed to be free, it becomes questionable. RMFC thus redefines the reanimate as an analytical instrument. Control does not begin where it is visible, but where it has already been normalized. Even within spaces historically associated with critique and autonomy,